long time.
There are a lot of people here, but I don't have very many comment cards, so I'm just asking if you want to make a comment, please bring me a comment card from the back so I can call you up. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, because, yeah, you're good. Thank you, Donna. Well, you might want to, I don't know what to do. I'll text James, but I don't know if he'll be able to help. Audio is streaming, but video is not. Can you see if it's on YouTube? I don't know what I don't know. I don't know anything about it. George says the audio is streaming. Okay, okay. Got it. Ready? You ready?
I'm going to call the September 5th, 2024 Planning Commission to order. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a nice crowd tonight, and we have a few items to consider today. But before we go to the items, I'd like to hear the wish of the board on the August 1st, 2024 minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from August 1st, 2024.
I'll second.
A motion has been made and properly seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight, and those forwarded to the council will be considered on September 30th. Council always makes the final decision. We are recommending body. We facilitate public process. So come back on that day, whatever decision is made tonight, and council makes the final decision. There is a request to move item number 2 to consider that first. If there is no objection, I would ask Michael to come and.
First, I need to make the.
Say that again?
First, I need to make the public procedure announcement.
Okay, go ahead.
An individual requesting to be heard on a matter related to the purpose of a hearing must be recognized by the chair before addressing the Planning Commission. Upon rising to speak, the speaker must identify himself, herself, and furnish a home address before proceeding with any comments or remarks. All comments and presentations must be addressed to the Planning Commission and not to the audience. The commission will allow the proponents a total of 10 minutes to speak in support of an application. The opponents will then be allowed 10 minutes to speak in opposition. Comments are accepted first from the applicant, followed by persons speaking in favor or the proponents, and then from those in opposition. Upon conclusion of any opposing comments or presentations, the chairperson will allow the applicant to offer a rebuttal if any time is remaining in the original allotted 10 minutes. Also, the chair may allow additional time if he sees fit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Michael?
Chairman and Commissioners, the applicant for Z2414/V2422 Pinnacle PG LLC Karen Drive, they've just indicated to me that they would like to request a deferral from the board. If you would like, I would like to bring the applicant forward to make that request of you.
Okay.
All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yoni Mizrahi. I'm presenting Pinnacle LLC for the project of 297 Karen Drive. We would like to ask for deferred because we're missing a couple of things that we need to fix on the site plan according to different recommendations that we had, and that's the reason.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have any comments on me or the applicant? The applicant is asking for a deferral on the second item, Z-24-14/V-24-22, Pinnacle PG LLC Karen Drive. They want to defer that to the next meeting. And I need to hear whether there's any objections. Anybody would like to speak to that request in the audience before I turn this over to the board? Hearing none, you may sit down. I'll turn this over to the board for a motion to defer.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, if it's deferred, then when would the next hearing be?
The next meeting.
The next meeting, just so that everybody, go ahead, Michael, if you'd like to talk.
This is in lieu of, they could have done it like item E, where it doesn't even, we don't even listen to it because it's on the agenda. We have to approve a motion to defer as requested.
If you were to approve the applicant's request to defer this item for 1 month, the next meeting for Planning Commission would be Thursday, October 3rd. And then the corresponding city council date would be Monday, October 28th.
Thank you. Motion to defer?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we defer Z-24-14/V-24-22 Pinnacle PG LLC/Karen Drive.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. This item will be heard on October 3rd. All right. I thought that's what I said. I need to slow down a little bit tonight. Thank you for coming. We'll give them a minute to leave. All right. The next item to consider is Z-24-13 DRB Group /12265 Charlotte Drive. Michael?
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. The First item before you this evening is a request from DRB Group of Georgia requesting a rezoning to allow for a 42-lot, single-family detached subdivision, and it's on just under 37 acres. The proposed density of this subdivision would be 1.14 dwelling units per acre. And the rezoning that is requested is from AG Agriculture to R22, which is basically half-acre lots. Do have the location map on the overhead. The property is located at 12265 Charlotte Drive, near the northeast corner of Charlotte Drive and Rucker Road. This property is developed with a small home and it was used for a pasture for livestock. Surrounding properties are zoned AG, R15, R12, and R22. The comprehensive land use plan designation of the property is very low-density residential, which does allow support the zoning proposal. This is a color site plan of the development with Charlotte Drive here. The more detailed site plan is here. And this site plan is depicting, again, 42 lots. Access is from Charlotte Drive. Lots along Charlotte Drive, of which there are 5, the homes will be oriented to Charlotte Drive. The 2 southern lots here will have individual driveways from Charlotte Drive, as well as this northern lot. All other lots will have access from new internal roads within the development. The lot sizes range from just over 22,000 square feet to just under 35,500 square feet, and the average lot size is nearly 26,000 square feet. Setback along Charlotte Drive is 65 feet. Along the new internal roads, it's 35 feet. There's common area running through the middle of the development. This includes a stream that runs through the development. There's also a common area between lots 19 and 20 here, in a mail kiosk area, as well as a stormwater pond. And serving the mail kiosk, there are 2 on-street parking spaces. There are a variety of trees on the property. I think this exhibit best shows the tree saves that the applicant is proposing. So this is a limits of disturbance plan. The orange dotted line represents their limits of disturbance. Anything on this side of the orange line with the tree, the critical root zone of the tree shown, those trees for the most part are going to be saved. There are a total of 63 trees that are shown as either a specimen or trees of quality. The applicant is proposing to save 33 specimen trees, and that doesn't include, there's over 200 smaller boundary trees around the perimeter of the property that the applicant will save. There are 4 detention ponds, so there's an existing agricultural lake that was created here at the end of this stream. And then there are 2 new ponds proposed on either side of this, the agricultural lake here. And then there's a pond here on the eastern side of the development. The applicant did provide some renderings of the homes. That product is very similar to the homes in this area of the city, has a more traditional look. Heavy use of brick and stone. The applicant will show those as part of their presentation. Of course, considering the review criteria for zoning change, we believe that the proposal is suitable as it relates to the development and use of adjacent and nearby properties, which are similarly developed. The R22 zoning district has a minimum lot size that is generally equal or larger than the surrounding subdivisions. A lot of the subdivisions to the north and east have R15 zoning, so the R22 would allow for a larger lot. We do not believe that this would have significant impacts on the natural environment. They are respecting the stream buffers and wetlands that are on this property, and the applicant has made attempts to save trees on the property as well. Again, looking at this zoning proposal, we generally believe that it will be less dense than some of the surrounding subdivisions. Again, they're proposing a density of 1.14 dwelling units per acre. Under that zoning district, you could go up to 2 units per acre, so it's about half, almost half. And then, of course, the rezoning request is consistent with the future land use of the property, and I think that's probably the most important. The applicant did kick off their public outreach early on in this process, and they invited surrounding residents to a virtual meeting, which was held on June 17th. The applicant did indicate in their citizen participation report that they received questions and comments related to stormwater, density, traffic, perimeter buffer, fencing, questions about what the fencing would look like along Charlotte Drive and abutting properties, the size of these homes, and tree removal. And then we showed this item to the public at the July 10th Community Zoning Information Meeting. The applicant actually utilized this room for that meeting to do a presentation for the public that showed up at that meeting, and they indicated that there were questions regarding tree removal, stormwater runoff, traffic, wildlife, and price points. With that, staff is recommending approval of the applicant's request subject to 21 conditions, and I'll go through those conditions. Condition 1 is the site plan specific condition rezoning the property to R22, and based on the site plan shown to you here with a revision date of 8/26/24. Condition 2 ties it to the home architecture and materials that were provided. Again, the applicant will show you what those look like. We do go on in that condition requiring 70% of the homes to have a primary exterior finished material of brick or stone. That is similar to conditions placed on surrounding subdivisions along Charlotte Drive. A lot of these conditions are very similar to conditions that were placed on surrounding subdivisions on Charlotte Drive, including condition 3, which is addressing the lots abutting Charlotte Drive, requiring a 65-foot front setback, that the homes face Charlotte Drive and access from the internal street, except that lots 1, 2, and 5 may have a driveway off Charlotte Drive, so long as that driveway does not encroach upon the critical root zone of any saved trees. Condition 4 addresses the landscape strip along Charlotte Drive. 5 addresses the project entrance. 6 requires that the main entrance street into the subdivision reflect the name and family history of the property. 7 is the Charlotte Drive streetscape, so your curb and gutter, planter, and sidewalks. Condition 8 is the streetscape for the new local streets. Condition 9 addresses the common area, and it does request that there be 4 on-street parallel parking spaces by the mail kiosk instead of 2. Condition 10, unfinished wood fences and decks shall not be visible from Charlotte Drive. Condition 11 reflects the the tree protection site plan, so it's the trees that they're proposing to save. 12 requires that the developer remove exotic and invasive trees and shrubs within the stream buffers and tree save areas, and replant where sparse as approved by staff. Condition 13 ties to the limits of disturbance plan, making that plan be substantially similar to the plan that you see here. Also discusses the 5-foot landscape strip required along the southeast and north property lines. So where trees are saved, we're not expecting that the applicant is going to plant underneath those trees if the trees are not going to survive. But in the areas that are bare, that they would plant that area to landscape standards, as well as providing for some evergreen and evergreen screening material in that landscape strip. Condition 14 requires utility structures such as head walls, etc., be finished with decorative stone or brick if visible from adjacent properties. Condition 5 addresses the stormwater ponds, and this condition is very similar to a condition that we placed on a subdivision on Wetbridge Road. the bridges that came before you. And this is just to ensure that the stormwater ponds have a more aesthetically pleasing feel to them. And so we identified at that time some things that represented an aesthetically pleasing stormwater pond. And so you'll see that within that condition. It also addresses concerns over mosquitoes in the stormwater pond, and requires dragonfly attracting plants to be planted around the stormwater, which dragonflies eat mosquitoes. So that was the logic there. Condition 16 also goes on to talk about stormwater requires impervious improvements to drain to the stormwater treatment provided for the neighborhood. So basically, we're just ensuring that that stormwater is treated in the detention ponds before it's released into the stream. Condition 17, again, is with stormwater, lots along the stream buffer shall direct stormwater flow to the front yards or directly to stormwater management facilities. Condition 18 requires that the developer implement the recommendations submitted in the traffic impact study. 19 also has to do with traffic and asks the developer to confirm adequate site distances during the land disturbance permit process. 20 also deals with traffic, again, the developer confirming adequate driveway spacing as part of the LDP process. In condition 21, no more than 10% of the unit shall be permitted to be rented. And that concludes the presentation. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you, Michael. I have a couple quick questions. Along Charlotte Drive, there are 5 houses. Do all of them have driveways to Charlotte Drive?
Just these lots 1 and 2 each have a driveway, and then lot 5 is up here on the north end.
So the other two.
These 2 will have access from this internal street here.
Okay. All right. I want to confirm condition number 3.
And again, those driveways are conditioned on not impacting critical root zone of save trees.
So the average is 25,926 square foot lots.
I'm
The
sorry?
average lot size is 25,926.
Yes, almost 26,000, which the
range-
minimum 22.
They range from 22 to 35. So it's actually more than they are 22 in terms of square footage for the lots.
Yes.
Has a hydrology study been done?
The
you're well-
applicant is here. I don't believe that they have done a hydro study, but they typically don't at this stage, but they are here and they can address that question.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions for Michael?
Yes, Michael, just a couple of quick ones. So in total, it was a little confusing because you see on the aerials the pond, which is existing, but that's not really designed for the livestock pond or whatever, agricultural pond. But there's 3 in addition to that runoff basins, correct?
Yes, so this is the stream running through the center of the property here, and this is that what I call an agricultural lake that was created when this was being used as a pasture. There's a new stormwater facility shown here on this side of the lake, and then there's one here. And then the third one is here on the east side of the property. Yeah, right here.
The reason I was asking that question is to see whether those ponds have been sized based on the runoff, but stormwater is highly regulated by the state, and it's going to be during the LDP process.
Yes.
You'd have that to not increase the rate of flow from the property post-development. But we can address that after we hear the applicant. Any other questions?
Yes, I do have one more on the curb cuts that you've shown on the developer's drawing here. The way they line up is with the entrance across the street. I don't know the name, Spence Street across the street, for those 2 lots on the lower left. Is that what that's showing? So there's no, when I drive the road, there's no center median or anything like that, correct?
There is not. They do appear to be across from Spence Street, and we do have our traffic engineer George Doyle here. George, if you have anything on that?
Do I need to introduce myself? No, I do not have anything else to add to that. We've been in communication with the team as well as the traffic engineering team, and they've provided us with sufficient information that their professional opinion is that there are no concerns with that alignment.
Thank you.
I have one quick question, Michael, in regards to the traffic study. Well, I see the table, but in the recommendation, you wanted them to abide by the recommendations of the traffic study, I'm assuming given by us? Is that what we're referring to?
So they have prepared a traffic study, and there are recommendations in that traffic study.
But it's not in our packet?
If the traffic study was not part of their application, then I thought it was part of their application. Is it not in the
Did
packet?
I miss it?
We have reviewed, and George can speak to their traffic study. We have reviewed a traffic study. George, I'll let you respond to that.
Yeah, we apologize if that was not included in your packet. The general summary of the traffic impact study is that due to the development, there are no adjacent impacts requiring improvements or mitigations due to the site trips. However, the traffic engineering team that submitted the traffic study had identified that the site driveway proposed along Charlotte Drive will be a stop-controlled intersection.
Okay, okay, where, all right, explain that to me on the map, Michael?
Are you able
Yeah.
to point that out?
Yeah, so where, yeah, let me go over there. Okay, so I'm just going to point to the site driveway that they have evaluated. That is going to be a westbound approach stop-controlled intersection. So movements along Charlotte Drive will be continuing free flow without any stop control condition, but exiting trips from the development will be stop controlled. Does that answer your question? Yes, stop sign.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry for the technical.
That helped a lot, okay.
Are there any other traffic-related questions?
Other than, you weren't concerned about adding the driveways on the front of these in this subdivision, you know, due to traffic and everything else? I know when I drove out there, there's other homes that have driveways that actually, you know, face Charlotte as well, but I was just wondering if there was an issue you thought with having them at this particular driveway.
Yeah, that's a great question. Those were discussions that we have had internally as staff with the team, with the development team, the applicant team. However, based off of conversations with the traffic engineering team, and they can probably provide additional information, we see that there are no immediate concerns, especially with the characteristic behaviors along Charlotte Drive with existing driveways, in addition to shared access points with subdivisions. There are no concerns.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, the study was in the packet. I just missed it somehow, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Quick
Anything
question-
else?
Quick question. I assume that a speed study was done on Charlotte. So do you know what the 85th percentile speeds are on Charlotte, and whether or not there's concerns about adequate stopping distance for those
Yes, so
driveways?
that is a part of the conditions of approval, that speed data was collected on Charlotte Drive in tandem with the TIS, the traffic impact study that is provided in your packet.
Right.
85th percentiles, which are 85% of the trips that are traveling. It's the average speed. It's the more accurate speed. The 24-hour related speeds along that corridor are 41 miles an hour, which is above the posted speed. So the site distances that are going to be incorporated during the LDP process are to reflect actual driving conditions. So they will coordinate and orchestrate during the LDP phase to increase site distance for exiting trips from their development to accommodate that higher speed that is currently observed along Charlotte.
Okay, I think my concern is actually accessing from Charlotte into the driveways, coming to a stop. And would there be adequate stopping distance for someone exceeding the speed limit, that 85th percentile, as someone's stopping to turn, make a hard right into their driveway or hard left?
That shouldn't be a concern. That is typically only a concern based off of right turn or left turn warrant analysis to incorporate deceleration lanes, which is also included in the traffic study. They evaluated whether or not right turn deceleration lanes are warranted, and they are not.
Okay.
So there are no safety-related deceleration concerns based off of that analysis.
No issue there, and we don't typically allow for provision for the addition of an accel decel lane in the event that it should become warranted at a later date, do we?
I do not believe so.
Okay, thank you.
That's a great question, and I can also confirm that at a later time, too.
Okay, thank you.
You're speaking like a traffic engineer. Any
Anything
other
else?
questions?
Or just so I'm clear, so there is no deceleration lane as you go into the subdivision currently?
Correct.
Okay.
And not required.
And it's not
Traffic
currently
code.
required?
It is not warranted based off of the entering and exiting trips as it relates to the posted speed, as it relates to the 85th percentile speeds that were collected.
Okay, thank you.
And that's based on the traffic analysis. All right, if there are no further questions, we'll have the applicant come forward and make a presentation, and we'll have further discussions probably. Please state your name and address for the record.
I was told to give Mr. Doyle a minute to let the presentation load.
Okay.
So. All good? All right. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jessica Hill. My business address is 600 Peachtree Street, and I represent DRB Group. I'm joined by two representatives from DRB Group who will also speak in a few minutes. Mr. Woodman did such a good job that I get to flip through some of these slides fairly quickly, but I'll start out with the zoning map. You can see the property outlined in red. It's one of the few remaining agriculturally zoned properties in this area. The majority of the properties, as Mr. Woodman indicated, along Charlotte Drive, at least on the west side, are zoned R22, and then extend back into R15. And again, to the north and to the east, it is also R15 zoning. So we think the rezoning to R22 is certainly in keeping with this corridor. Site plan, again, is a refresher. It's 42 homes, over a 25,000 square foot average. These are owner-occupied, single-family detached. Some of the highlights, there's a 5-foot perimeter landscape strip. There are sidewalks provided both on Charlotte Drive as well as internal. That's a 6-foot planter and a 5-foot sidewalk. And then a 65-foot setback along Charlotte Drive with a condition that the homes have to face Charlotte Drive. And there's some consideration in the driveway placement associated with that because it's a little strange to come into the back of your home and have a front facing an area where you can't access. Just as surrounding density around here, you've got Charlotte Estates to the north, which is 0.81 units an acre. You've got Emerson Hall, which is 1.2 units an acre on the other side of Charlotte. You've got the Oaks and the Preserve, which again are at 1.34 and 1.69 units an acre. This project is indicated as 1.14 units an acre. And then the Jennifer Oaks to the east is at 1.37. So we are certainly fewer units per acre for the projects to the east and west. And obviously, as you extend north, they get a little bit less dense. This is just the rendered site plan. Again, happy to go back to this if we need to. The aerial view that Mr. Woodman was sharing with you to show you how the homes will lay out. You can really see here the streams and the wetland in the middle and the big open space. Tree save plan. This is a very small version of the tree save plan. There are a lot of trees on the property, and as indicated, many of them are being preserved, particularly along the boundaries where we abut other homeowners. The traffic impact study, here's a page from it, so for those of you who haven't had an opportunity to look at it, the recommendations are at the very bottom. It was one entering and exiting lane onto Charlotte Drive for that main driveway, a stop sign so that anybody coming out of the subdivision has to actually stop before they turn onto Charlotte Drive, and then providing adequate site distance. And as indicated, we not only had to study the site distance at the posted speed, but also what people are actually driving on that road. And then I'm going to let Mike Busher, the division president, talk to you a little bit about the home elevations.
Good evening, everyone. Mike Busher, the division president of DRB Homes. Our address is 55 Ivan Allen, Atlanta, Georgia. So just some high-level discussions. First, I knew Carol Byer really well over the years and certainly knew this property. Have lived in Alpharetta at different points in my life. So, you know, it's a significant property, and so we are certainly treating it that way. It's obviously one that we were thrilled to be selected for to develop. Just a quick note on the sort of competing interests with respect to the frontage homes along Charlotte. Obviously, that was something that staff had kind of leaned towards from the very beginning of wanting to have a front-facing home along Charlotte Drive. Well, with that comes some competing you know, interests, one of which is then you have driveways, you know, to access them. So we did spend some time with the traffic engineers, but the character of that street, as you know, it does have driveways. It also has one entry point for subdivisions without decel lanes, and so you can't ever really litigate bad behavior out of people. But I think generally speaking, this accomplishes the greater goal, which was consistency of a home facing the front of that corridor while also having a driveway accessing each. We solved the two that flank off of the main entrance by having driveways that then would access from a side entry into those homes. So I think it's as good of a solution as we could come up with. Quick word on the homes. You know, they're ranging kind of in size from 3,000 to, you know, just under 5,000 square feet. Some of these will have basements, so those would be in excess probably of 6,000 square feet. We created the plans for the home, for the property, so they really weren't anything that we pulled off of a shelf. But in designing them, what we wanted was sort of to get away of what I thought was kind of a watered-down farmhouse that had been done everywhere and turn a little more traditional. So we have a mix of materials here. We have stone, we have softer siding, but we also have pretty elegant all-side brick, which I think the market's gotten away from. Transacting prices, everybody always asks, but you know, probably 1.5 to over $2 million, so pretty consistent with where market is. And obviously, we would hope for prices to go even higher, but that's my market expectation. And you know, as you may hear from some of the community, we have worked with several of the most impacted neighborhoods. Salina is here tonight. I think Jackie's here tonight. DJ may be here. Carrie, who works with me, has met with each of these individuals. We have plans in place to address some specific concerns. The overwhelming one from Jennifer Oaks, aside from, you know, perhaps just not wanting the development to occur, was a stormwater facility. It is in a specific spot for a reason. We have studied the hydrology. If I've learned anything about developing in Alpharetta, it's that you start with sort of hydrology and trees and then work backwards, and that's what we've done. So, you know, from where we access the property was purposeful around trees. How we've created divides, that's purposeful around trees. And then finally, the stormwater was really a function of where that natural grade is going to take us. So I would crystallize it by saying I think we've solved many of the issues. For those who would just say that the land use isn't appropriate, obviously we would try to argue that it is. And then from there, I think we're down to details around solving some of those pinch points of buffer trees and ponds. So I'll stop there, and if you have any further questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Just leave it there. And we'll reserve any time for rebuttal.
Oh, you're done? Okay, thank you.
That was 7 minutes, 20 seconds, just letting you know.
Okay, any questions?
Chairman, I had one regarding the fourth detention pond, the easternmost one. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I could not tell from looking at the drawing where the outfall is for that.
Let's get the plan back up. Which pond?
Okay, looking to the far right of the diagram,
Okay.
the one like on the outer perimeter of the development.
Yeah, so that outfall, if you're asking where does it drain, everything obviously goes back to that stream.
So
that
you're
would
finding
be,
it under the
Yep.
houses and under the road?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really what they all do. They all sort of function, to collect, hold, and then distill it back.
Okay. And have you had an opportunity to assess whether you have to do any sediment traps?
Well, we're going to look at bioretention. So we're going to try to do something on-site, in a natural area. That's something we're working through right now. So I would call our engineering probably 80% complete, but depending on favorability of the commission, then we'll move right into LDP, because our goal is to have some kind of review with staff with specificity before mayor and council. So,
And were all of these detention ponds designed to be earthen? Or
No.
is it some hybrid?
No, it's a hybrid, yeah. You'll have some that will be earthen, but most of them will have, wall and concrete then mixed in. So yeah, especially the one up against Jennifer Oaks, that's the one that's probably the one that had the most sensitivity. But again, it's where that water right now is running right through sort of unchecked. So it has to go there. What we've done is, we hope, has addressed most of the concerns around size, the way we're going to face it, evergreen screen. It's roughly 6 feet in height from perspective of someone standing on a deck looking out at that structure, the wall will be, and then it obviously is cut down from there. So it's not looming over the top, and I think it was roughly, do you? Okay.
I also was curious about looking for the topographical map,
Oh, yeah.
map that told me what the drop was from the wall to the surrounding lot.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I was curious too about from the edge of the detention pond, where the wall is proposed to be, what the topographical drop is.
Oh, to bottom? Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah, I can find out. Is it 8 feet?
8 feet?
Okay.
I was guessing
I would have
10,
said it's a
so
little
close.
more, but.
Okay, thank you.
And this is the rendering that we did for, I don't know if you can see that, but of kind of perspective of standing on a deck in Jennifer Oaks looking towards the pond.
Okay, is that a mix of deciduous and evergreen?
It is, and it's obviously it's a little notional because we're just putting in something to give someone a sense of where that property line is, and then it's hard to kind of give that perspective. But the measurement of the wall, which is I think what most people wanted to know, is roughly 6 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Have you, stormwater management is always a conversation we have at every meeting. And it is sensitive to the people, particularly those that are going to be backing up to this. So, and I just lived through it with an application that actually backed up to my neighborhood. And so I understand that there'll be a lot of concerns with this. So have you shared any other, the other areas will look like, and, trying to make everybody feel comfortable with the design and what this is going to kind of look like, or
Well, I think
are you not even there yet?
Yeah, the main concern aesthetically was this pond, right? Because the other ones are really internal to the site. But I think the bigger issue for for most is volume. Like, how does this work, right? Because, again, right now, it is just running off of a farmed field and going to its lowest level as quick as it needs to. And I think you've been through it enough times, but when this gets engineered, it's over-engineered, right? I mean, it stores, even though it has to store pre-development pace, it ends up doing that probably 2x, when it's all said and done. So, if we need more detail around the aesthetic of it, we can do it. But I think the bigger question is usually, how do these things work? Do they retain and hold, indefinitely? They don't. They retain long enough to store, and then they move through. Some people want to know about, petroleums, and you have to filter that too. So that's done. Again, locations, those are probably the most sensitive, but they're pretty fixed at this point. I mean, this isn't, as I said, I'm calling it 80% complete, but it's by an engineer who's worked with your team a lot. So it's pretty darn certain of where it's going to end up. And so I don't have a ton of room to change locations. If we could have, we would have. Because I would have loved to not had it on that wall, or excuse me, on that property line, but that's where it has to be.
One other quick question. I saw that you're doing maybe like trails and walking paths and benches, but there's no other amenities. Like there's not a clubhouse, there's not a pool, there's really not a gathering place. So I was just wondering, that high end of a neighborhood, you just thought that they didn't need it, or
yeah, it's
you ever
pretty
thought
consistent.
about it?
By the way, most of the neighborhoods around Charlotte don't have it either. I mean, that's pretty consistent with what I think we would all agree that city center here is the amenity that most people are really attracted to, right, from a pedestrian standpoint. And now more than ever, you couldn't do this 10 years ago, but it's actually accessible walking. So yeah, the idea that someone will walk from that neighborhood here is highly likely, whereas, it wouldn't have been. With a 25,000 square foot lot, it's also possible to put your own pool in. So we wouldn't be able to have that before. On a septic lot, you also couldn't do that. You'd have too many competing problems with fields, but septic field, but you can do it on a sewer lot.
Right.
So it's pretty rare. But yeah, I think my prediction is, 10 people in the neighborhood probably build their own pools, and the amenity itself is living here.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
A follow-up question for you regarding this particular detention pond. The functionality of a detention pond relies very much on its ongoing maintenance, too.
Sure.
Do we assume that there's going to be an HOA responsible and funded enough to be able to properly maintain it and keep it from being an eyesore also later?
I would hope so. I mean, again, it goes both ways, right? The people that are buying these homes are obviously making a pretty significant investment, although that investment seems less these days than it used to be, but it's substantial enough. So, yeah, there's absolutely going to be an HOA, and it'll probably have, unlike most buyer profiles, there's going to probably be more rigor around wanting the dues to be higher. So, yeah, I don't think that's going to be our concern. I don't mean to dismiss it, but I just think that'll be a focal point for the people who live there. They don't want it to be that way.
Okay, thank you.
Got it.
Just want to point out condition 16 to an extent addresses water quality, and condition 21 implies that it's going to be an HOA. The time for questions does not count against the applicant. So I'm going to ask for those in favor to come forward. You will have some time for rebuttal after we hear from the public. Starting with those in favor, please come forward. I see none in favor. Oh, okay, somebody. Is that Chris? Yeah, I thought that was you.
Good evening, Chairman,
Good evening.
esteemed Planning Commission members. My name is Chris Owens, and my address is 7425 Mid-Broadwell Trace in Alpharetta, Georgia. We live at the north end of Charlotte Drive on the east side of Charlotte in a neighborhood there south of Mid-Broadwell. We know this corridor well, travel it daily, and to address some of the questions and concerns that you all have discussed tonight. If you haven't been on Charlotte, I invite you to come out there and spend a little time. You're welcome to park in my neighborhood and walk. We do have continuous sidewalk from end to end. And thanks to Rucker, we have sidewalk into Crabapple and into downtown Alpharetta. The same on Mid-Broadwell. And any given morning when I leave to go to work, I can easily count 10 to 12 people on that sidewalk in the morning at any given time. It's used frequently. I think there was a question about driveways and traffic and access. That's the nature of Charlotte Drive, and that's one of the things that I would implore you to help us keep, and that this applicant has presented and that Michael has shown you in the conditions. All the homes on Charlotte, whether developed as part of a neighborhood or whether built independently, face Charlotte Drive. Some have driveways directly to Charlotte, some access from inside their neighborhood. But it's an aesthetic that has been maintained, that the council maintained when the newer developments across Charlotte from this application were built, and it has held up well. And it has a special feel to it. We'd ask you to keep that protected. I'm glad to hear that the result of the traffic study does not recommend deceleration lanes, because again, a deceleration lane is intended to help a car slow down so that it keeps the main street traffic flowing at speed. That's not what we want on Charlotte. We want the cars to slow down. So 42 new neighbors would be welcome, and their traffic and turning in now their neighborhood would slow down the through traffic that we get. I'm glad to hear that traffic study recommended that. So acceleration lanes have gone out of vogue, and I'll let the traffic engineer for the city speak to that. But as far as the frontage, I'm in favor of the landscape strips proposed. Again, I would just ask that be conditioned to give the applicant and the staff enough room to work together to make this frontage blend with the development pattern that we have out there. I'd hate to see a template put in place by condition with good intent, and then it turn out to have less than favorable results. On stormwater, I am in favor of the condition to require them to capture all impervious surface and treat it. There's no perfect plan, but I do think there's room for improvement on this plan while they finalize their hydrology study. And I'd like for the staff to have the ability to work with them. That old farm pond, the agricultural pond, does need some help and some improvement. I'd be glad to see that addressed as well as part of the plan, which it looks like they have. So in closing, I'm in favor of the plan as proposed and as conditioned, and I would ask you all to support that with those concerns that I just voiced. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else in
That's
favor?
the 10 minutes, so if you want to allow extra.
I will if there is somebody else. I think somebody at the very back. Are you wanting to comment in favor? Somebody's walking in. Obviously not. All right. Anyone in opposition, please come forward.
We have Jackie Carlisle.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Jackie Carlisle. I live at 1200 Rucker Road. So if you're looking at the plan, my home, my just under 10 acres, essentially that pond drains onto my property into Faux Killer Creek. So Faux Killer Creek runs all the way through my property, through the bottom, and then through the storm water management system that runs underneath Rucker. So that's where I live, and for me, it's more of a concern kind of down the line. I know that a lot of these provisions put into place seem good initially, but when you talk about homes putting in pools down the line, that affects, the water that's controlled. I mean, it's good and bad, right, to have HOA amenities for a pool. It keeps it to one pool. That's the positive. The negative to having a lot of different pools is just more places for water, not to be absorbed and into those, stormwater management provisions that they put in place. My biggest concern is stormwater. My home does back up, even though I have a lot of land, it backs up to the back of, of their development. And there are two particular lots that I've brought to their attention that I really would like for them to make sure that they, think about where water is going and how fast it's going, because even today, without any help and no houses and no roofs and no infrastructure, there's already a water problem. So I just want to make sure that not only will they maintain the level, but improve it from a stormwater management position. So
you're immediately down gradient?
What's that?
You're immediately down gradient or downstream?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, the 10 acres are right below, so all the water comes down from their development into my property.
Those are very nice pieces of property out there. Thank you for your comments.
Thanks, I'm done.
Anyone else
We have
listed?
Donald Postles.
Good evening, Chairman and
evening.
esteemed Planning Commission. I'm Donald Postles, I go by DJ.
Sorry.
I reside at 1590 Harvest Lane in the Jennifer Oaks neighborhood and have been a member of the community for the last 8 years. And we've very much enjoyed our beautiful view, as I think all the neighbors on Harvest Lane backing up. I do want to acknowledge DRB Group. I sent an email today and I was told that response was submitted, so I do want to acknowledge the quick response. It does sound as if they are going to work with my recommendations in terms of the retention pond. So Representative Reynolds, I do appreciate you inquiring about that. It is a significant concern for me, my family, and our neighbor. When we talk about investment and value in our home, I don't want this to be an eyesore. And typically, your average home buyer will go out and look for eyesores. It's not living near retention ponds. It's not living near power lines or other attractive nuisances. So when I hear that the retention pond is going to be located 28 feet from my property line, that strikes me as very close. I'm 6'3", standing tall, so I'm being told that this wall is going to be as tall as me. So that is of a concern. Again, it does sound like DRB will be working with me in terms of trying to make this as aesthetically pleasing as possible. I spent the weekend traveling all around Milton and Alpharetta, taking pictures of really unfortunate looking retention ponds to average, mediocre, to what I consider to be higher quality. So I do look forward to DRB working with me to make sure that the view is minimized. But I do question and challenge the size. If I hear 2 times, does the water flow really need to be 2 times? Does it need to be 110 feet? Does it need to be 6 feet high? Could this size be reconsidered and to find some common ground? And can the variance be pushed farther back to allow for a less obtrusive view? So that's it on the retention pond. I would say just on behalf of our community that lives off of Mid-Broadwell, over the years we have seen increasing traffic. It is increasingly difficult at times to make a left-hand turn out of our neighborhood. Just yesterday, almost saw a pretty severe accident of someone trying to take a left from Mid-Broadwell onto Charlotte, and where we have that crosswalk and increased pedestrian traffic, we do feel very strongly that traffic will become of increasing concern, along with the development that's going on the other side of Mid-Broadwell. So I don't believe the town has any plans to create some turning lanes or additional roundabouts, but you're dealing with an old country road. I mean, there's cyclists there, there's no cycling lane, and so it's just a very dense area for an old country road of Mid-Broadwell. So I just want to bring that to the Planning Commission's attention and the impact that it'll have.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? All right, we have no one else to speak. I'm going to ask the applicant if you have a rebuttal, if you can address the 2 issues raised. I'm assuming you've done a hydrology study and sized the ponds accordingly.
Well, first of all, if DJ's only 6 feet, then I'm like 5'2", because he's taller than 6 feet. Yeah, so DJ's been good to work with, and my commitment to working with him is that we'll try to figure this out. I think, again, if there was a way that I could wave a wand and just make it disappear, I would. It's likely going to stay where it is. What I think we can do is work with aesthetics. I've talked a lot about buffer plantings, and I think those things will help immensely. So, so on that issue, absolutely. And then for Jackie, same concern. I mean, you know, again, she is immediately down gradient, immediate south of the, if you kind of page view, yeah. Really, these, I can't point to it, but that's okay. Yeah, bottom right, 2 lots. And so, you know, again, right now what's happening is it is releasing off with no no structure. And I know everybody thinks that impervious is going to just accelerate that. It won't. And so I know we can design and pitch that so it all starts to funnel into, right now, what is the farm pond? By the way, there was a question about the pond. That pond doesn't stay in its own form, right? We're obviously going to have to modify that pond too. What will happen is we'll recreate that dam, we'll lower that existing level, and so it too will become, basically a better functioning but less intrusive visual than it is today. Right now, it's just holding water.
Did you say you're going to lower, you're going to dredge it?
Yeah, what'll happen is we'll redo the dam, which will reduce the overall water level in it, right? Because right now it's just standing at a level was basically where Carol wanted it. Yeah, so that'll be modified. So that pond, in other words, that pond doesn't just stay. It has to be modified, but in doing that, it'll be engineered in a way that it wasn't done previously.
Okay. All right.
Anything else?
All right, that's
Thank
it. Well, any questions from the board? I'm turning it over to the board here in a moment, so you can ask questions at any time during the discussion. But I just want to start by just appreciating the work the staff has done, and even the applicant are working together. And you made a very nice presentation, the applicant, and looking at the public, those who spoke also. This is why I love Alpharetta, because it's such an effort to make sure that we get things right. Do we always do that? That's probably an impossible feat, but we try the best we can. And I think you've done a very good job with the way you laid out the site and the way you presented work to the public. That's greatly appreciated. So the things that we are talking about here is just to make sure that all the issues are addressed. There's still other steps that will be taken before construction starts. There is the land disturbance permit process that you have to go through. But and the board, you had great questions. So I'm turning this over to you for discussion and our motion. And if you want to ask questions to the applicant or Michael, feel free to do so.
Mr. Chairman, I actually had a question for Michael. This is a repeat of stormwater runoff on all these projects for many, many years with Planning Commission and City Council. There has to be some basic requirement or setup for each of these stormwater ponds, because that, you hear the residents that live behind it, it's like, hey, we're going to, this is something very important, and it is. So are there some basic requirements in the building of a stormwater runoff pond?
Sure. So we do have to follow the state's regulations as part of as the city reviewing erosion control and stormwater plans. So we do have to follow their requirements. Basically, what we have to impose on these developments is that they cannot increase the rate of flow off this property that is flowing off the property today. So with this development, they cannot increase the rate of flow of the stormwater off this property. So there are things that will be typically reviewed during land disturbance permit. And the reason why it's reviewed then is the hydrology study associated with the land disturbance permit for stormwater. It's a pretty expensive process to pull that together and do that study. And so that is not required at this stage, and it's required after the applicant does get that approval for whatever they're requesting, typically a rezoning of the property.
The sizing is basically an engineered effort, and the aesthetics is something that staff and the applicant and potentially the neighbors will work on. But with respect to stormwater quantity and quality control, that's a very highly regulated industry by the state and the federal government. And the city has what is called local issuing authority. And if they don't do it, then it's taken away by the state.
Yeah.
So.
A question for Michael, or whoever might have the answer. For lots 3 and 4, we had a conversation about the driveways not coming off Charlotte Drive. Would the driveways go out to Road A or Road B? Or do we know that at this point?
So the applicant, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you had mentioned that they would be accessed from this entrance road. Is that correct?
From Road A?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and there were no concerns, I'm sorry?
They're side entry, basically. The garages would be side entry. So the homes will face Charlotte Drive, but they'll have a side entry garage.
Okay,
With the
so there were no concerns about speeds as people come off Charlotte onto this entry road as someone's trying to get in and out of their driveway?
Mr. Doyle has looked at that and
Okay.
didn't indicate any
So no
concerns with
recommendation
that.
for speed cushions or anything like that?
Not at this time. The information that has been provided in the submitted traffic study will be utilized by staff to look at those issues and concerns down the road.
Okay, and curiosity, what is the lane width for Road A and Road B?
One moment.
I'm happier-
Michael, can you please put that back on the screen?
It does have to meet the city's local standard. I'm sorry,
That could be anything from 10 and a half to 12 feet.
I can't remember offhand. I did have that printed out. I'm just seeing if I have that real quick. Give me 1 second. And if the applicant happens to know, let me know. Shoot.
Right, the narrower lane would be better.
I had to put my readers on to be able to see this tiny plan. But, so the road's internal are 24 feet wide, and the entry drive on either side is 12 feet.
Curb to curb?
There's trees in the middle, so I don't know if it's curbed necessarily.
That's a wide road, and that's going to encourage some speeding. Okay.
So the typical the two-lane street standard is here shown at the bottom of this drawing.
Uh-huh.
And the lane widths are 10 feet wide.
10 feet, okay.
There's
Yeah.
10 feet for each direction, and then there's 2 foot of curb and gutter on the edge.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just share my thoughts. I do think this is going to be additive to the community. I think the elevations, the architecture, and the renderings are very attractive. I believe, as the chairman said, and I want to second this, I think the site plan was very well thought out. I mean, we threw out every question in the world, whether it was driveways, stormwater, facing, detention ponds, and I really enjoyed the answers for each of them. I thought they were spot on. And I think it's because the applicant worked in very tight collaboration with the city staff, which, when that happens, these projects usually go well. I also want to say that something I like about this project is that very low-density residential is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan. We don't always get that. We sometimes have apples and oranges relative to the comp plan, and that usually does not go well. I also like how the lot size is equal to or greater than the surrounding subdivisions. We don't always get that. Sometimes we get higher density than what's surrounding it, and that creates issues. And then finally, I think, another positive point is that the future land use designation supports the rezoning request to R22. And so with all those things, I'm going to be in support of the project.
Anyone like to make a
Well, I'll
motion?
just add to Todd, what Todd said and the chairman said. It's a really good thing when you have an applicant who's willing to do the homework and to work with staff and the community. And I appreciate your willingness to really work things out on an individual basis to where, each person feels more comfortable. Because it is emotional when it's affecting your property and your home values. So we really appreciate DRB Group really making an effort to work with our community. So I'm in favor of it as well.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Z-24-13 DRB Group /12265 Charlotte Drive as presented by staff with all of the conditions as presented by staff.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any further discussions? Hearing none, this is going to go before City Council on September 30th. Thank you, everybody, for working together. I'm very
We
impressed
have
with
to have,
this.
we need to have a vote first.
I'm going to call for the vote in a minute. That's why I said any further discussion. So in any case, I'm pleased with the way everybody has contributed to this application. So if there are no further comments or in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. It goes before council on September 30th. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is your CLUP-24-04/MP-24/07/Z-24-12 Epic Design and Build Upper Hembrow Townhomes.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. The next item before you is a request from Epic Design and Build, LLC, requesting a comprehensive land use plan amendment, master plan amendment, and rezoning to allow for 7 for-sale townhomes on 1.127 acres. A comprehensive land use plan amendment is requested from professional business office to high-density residential. Rezoning is requested from O&I office institutional to R8A/D, which is dwelling for sale attached detached residential. And then there is a master plan that covers the property. A master plan amendment is requested to add dwelling for sale attached for a townhome use product. And that is to the George Oswald Jr. master plan. And I do have the location map on the overhead. The property is located at 0 Upper Hembrow Road. These properties do not have frontage directly on the property does not have frontage directly on Upper Hembrow Road. It is the property that provides access to this property is through 1105 and 1115 Upper Hembrow Road. This is a view of the property, a bird's eye view of the property. So this is 1105 and 1115 Upper Hembrow Road. These are office condos and 2 structures. They were approved as part of that George Oswald master plan. The property to the rear is the subject of the request this evening, and that was phase 2 of that master plan, and that showed 3 small office buildings on the rear property. The proposed density with this development would be 6.21 dwelling units per acre. That master plan that I referenced was approved in 1988, so it's a little older master plan. It was a 2.9 acre office condominium development, and as I mentioned, the phase 2 was the subject property for the 3 additional office buildings. Currently, the property, and this is just some more street view of the property entering off of Upper Hembrow Road. These are the 2 office buildings. The property is back here. This is going deeper into the office condo development. The property is here where you see the trees. And then this is the applicant's site plan. So this is the 7-unit townhome building here at the back of the property. The 2 office buildings sit up here with surface parking in front and behind those 2 buildings. The applicant is, again, proposing 7 townhome units. These are 2-story over basement townhome units. So there's some topography on this property. It drops off as you go further to the south. So it will appear as 2 stories from the front here. These are front-loaded townhomes, and it'll be 3-story at the back. This property relies on a 30-foot common egress easement through this office condo development, and that driveway was laid out to serve that office condominium development, not a residential development. Currently, there is quite a bit of grade. This drops off really fast, and there's a lot of jogs in this driveway as well as on-street parking that backs up directly onto the driveway. As part of the master plan, there's a 15-foot perimeter buffer, natural buffer along the east, west, and south property lines. The applicant is showing that 15-foot natural buffer on their site plan. The development does meet the city's minimum parking requirements. They are providing a total of 1 parking space for each bedroom is required. The applicant is providing 2 side-by-side parking spaces in the garage, as well as 2 additional spaces in a driveway for a total of 28 spaces. And there are 3 additional guest parking spaces here in the driveway at that location. Property is currently pretty heavily wooded, as showed you in those pictures. There's a mix of hardwoods and pines. The tree saves on the site plan are pretty much limited to this 15-foot perimeter buffer. And then there is a walled stormwater pond that is shown in this area here. There is an underground pipe at the rear of this property that exists today, and that is believed to provide stormwater for the office development to the north. The applicant provided some renderings or perspective of the townhomes. So this is a view of the townhomes. This is a closer view just to give you an idea of what those would look like. According to the applicant, these units will be 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. They're approximately 2,300 square feet, not including the basement. The renderings that they provided here are showing the 2-story over basement with a brick or stone front facade. And then their side and rear elevation show board and batten. This is the rear elevation. Remember, it's got some topography on the property, so it's 2-story at the front and 3-story in the back. In looking at the review criteria for a comprehensive land use plan amendment, master plan amendment, and rezoning, what we found is we did pull some CoStar data. This is just information that we received from our economic development folks. Looking at the different type of office vacancy rates in the city, we know that the office market has had some issues, problems lately, and currently the citywide office vacancy rate is just above 23%. But however, we did look at that as well for the smaller office condo product, which is different than these large office space. And that product, the office condominium market, has a much lower vacancy rate of only 2.5%. In fact, we had an application last month for a new building with office. We have a new office building on Marietta Street that is also going forward to council later this month. So we have seen requests for smaller office product, office condo product. So given that there is a market for that or a demand for that, and the fact that this property is approved in the master plan for 3 small office condo buildings, we have some concern with changing the future land use of the property and zoning. One of the review criteria also talks about consistency with the comprehensive plan. And so we did identify some policies and strategies specific to housing that we felt that this development could be inconsistent with. And for example, housing strategy 1.4 promote subdivisions that foster a sense of community and promote pedestrian mobility, the natural environment, community recreation, and in public open space. Housing policy number 4 design quality and long-term value into the residential development. So those are some of the examples of policies and strategies that we believe that the development is not consistent with. Also, of course, they're asking for a future land use plan amendment, so the rezoning request is not supported by the existing future land use, which is professional business office. We do believe that this development could have adverse impacts on the natural environment if there are not more tree saves. Again, the only tree saves really were limited to the natural buffer. The applicant did provide a citizen participation report. They indicated that they received some questions and concerns. Questions about whether or not there would be buffering along the south side of the property. The south and west side of this property abuts 2 residential subdivisions in the city of Roswell. And so we heard from some of those residents at the community zoning information meeting. Some concerns about stormwater runoff, requests that a fence be provided along the rear property line or the south property line, questions about the size of the townhomes. And then the applicant did provide 2 letters of support from the adjacent property to the north, so the office condo development. Again, as I mentioned, we did show this to the public at the June 12th Community Zoning Information Meeting. There was 1 public comment left on the sign-in sheet requesting that the southern property line be marked. And with that, staff is recommending denial of the applicant's request for comprehensive land use plan amendment, master plan amendment, and rezoning. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Something struck me in your presentation about the smaller office space occupancy rate. Are you seeing a trend in the industry whereby people are moving out of big office buildings to smaller office spaces? Because it seems to be the case here with 2.3, 2.5 vacancy and 97 plus. It seems like people are preferring the smaller office space to the big office, which have a much higher vacancy rate.
It does seem that way, and office is also moving to these downtown cores, so we have a lot of demand for office around city center, around our downtown overlay. We have a lot of office demand around the Avalon area as well, small office demand. So the office does want to be near amenities. They want to be able to walk to restaurants on their lunch break or after work. They want to have the opportunity to recreate, walk on a trail during their lunch break or during a break from work. So we have seen that. I don't want to put Kathy on the spot, but as her wearing her economic development hat, she probably has a little bit of information about the office market that she sees. Sorry, Kathy.
She's used to be put on the spot.
Chairman, we're definitely seeing smaller leases. Okay. We're definitely seeing smaller leases. We're not seeing, the 50,000 square foot lease requests. We're seeing a lot of smaller requests, and they're usually 10,000 and under. So we are seeing a lot of offices reducing the space, but they still want space. So that's why I think you're seeing a trend where there's also a bigger demand for these small office condo spaces.
I have seen that in some of the cities too, where people are leaving the big office buildings to smaller offices. There is much more control, and it seems like with the home work balance, people don't want to make a big commitment for a lot of office space.
Right.
That's striking to see that happening in Alpharetta.
Yeah, with hybrid work, and then they're sharing desks, so they need smaller spaces.
Okay, that was interesting to see. Thank you. All right, any questions for Michael? No questions at this time. We're going to have the applicant come and make a presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Ethan Underwood with Miles Hansford. Our address is 178 South Main Street here in Alpharetta. So if I can get our presentation rolling. Feels like, yeah, there you go. You're controlling my cursor. Okay. There we go. Thank you. Michael always does a great job, so I won't bore the Planning Commission with the details of the application. Obviously, we're zoned OI, and this is a question we're putting before the Planning Commission: is it appropriate to change your comprehensive land use plan? And we would always expect staff is going to say protect the land use plan. But we're dealing with a piece of property that was developed in 1988, and you have office condos there, but this property in the rear, frankly, it's an inferior site for office development, and the fact that it's not been developed over the last 35 years shows the difficulty in that. So then our job is to prove to you, A, there's not a market for it at this particular location, but also that this is an appropriate use on this site. So obviously you can see this property here in the middle, which is tax records say is owned by Amazon.com. I believe it's the old Harry's, but it was recently converted to residential use. So the city has seen some need for residential units in this area. We do have a good bit of office professional and office institutional areas that are zoned, but this particular tract, I would just submit to you, it is, even if there was a market or is a market for office condos, that market that people really want to be in is as stated by staff, in a walkable environment, closer to city center. There's nothing really walkable about this area because it's behind an existing office condo, and we can't even get interest in office condominiums being built behind that. So while the city may have more office condominiums that people are looking for, we would submit to you it's not at this location. And the fact that this property has just remained undeveloped for 35 years shows that the market demand is not there for that. Now, what is proposed, and with the support of actually the property owners who have the office condos in front of us, would be to convert this portion of the back that was zoned so long ago for office to townhomes. The original proposal was to do 8 townhome units with an underground detention facility. There was concern that was expressed, well, are 8 homes going to have enough wherewithal to pay for the maintenance of that? In addition, what has been worked out with the neighbors is that there'd be a reconditioned access drive. It needs a little bit of love as well. So these gentlemen who are looking to develop the townhomes would be redoing the access drive through the office condominium and then running it through, I guess, this hammerhead drive here. Now, staff did make comments and saying, well, there's not a lot of tree save that's occurring. We'll get into that. This is the tree plan. I would submit to you that if this is denied and an office condominium were built on this, it's going to take down as many or more trees as than what's being proposed here. We would submit to you that this is actually protecting more open space because you don't have the necessary parking for an office condominium. But again, we're trying to get away from that. We think the worst thing that could happen is you go build an office condominium and then you have vacancies at this particular location. So with that, we are proposing significant tree save areas, refinishing that access drive so that the folks who are operating there for their offices have a the benefit of that improvement, but also the stormwater pond. Now, the folks in the north have their own stormwater facility. This would have its dedicated stormwater facility. The original plan showed 8 units. It's now being modified to 7, and it would have a open stormwater pond. Now, no one's really going to see that because it's in the back of the facility, it's downhill, it's behind buffering, but that's a lot lower maintenance cost for a smaller group of folks to be able to make sure that that is operating properly. The stormwater pond, as I heard the question in the last presentation, well, what's the standard? What do you have to do? There's 3 things a stormwater pond's got to do. First, it's got to capture the stormwater and make sure that it doesn't flood folks downstream. So with the additional impervious surface, it's going to capture that stormwater and hold it. It's got to infiltrate the first inch of stormwater back into the groundwater supply so that you're still getting that into the underground aquifers. And then lastly, it's got to clean that water before it discharges it out. So those are the 3 things that every stormwater pond is going to have to do to comply with Alpharetta standards and state standards, and this will meet that. And in fact, the stormwater we expect is probably going to be coming off the site at a slower rate than it is today. But the Alpharetta standards is it has to come off the site at similar location, and then also at a rate no faster than it is flowing downstream today. So this is actually going to be discharging into one of the backyards. There's a draw in one of the homes in Roswell. They've got a natural draw that then pulls that water up to their stormwater catch basins in their subdivision road. So long story short, the water is going to go, after this is developed, exactly where it's going today, after it's detained and cleaned and released at a slower or equal rate. Again, more information on that. We feel that these homes would provide a needed housing product in the area. I think that they do meet with the aesthetic qualities, and certainly if staff feels that we can get over the hump of, is this the right land use? Can we change the comprehensive plan to facilitate the land use? I'm sure our clients will be happy to work with staff more on architecture to get them comfortable with that. But we do feel that because of the time that the property has been left undeveloped, because of the very, very difficult office market in Alpharetta, and the location, even if there is a rise in office condos, this location's just, we're not seeing that demand. We feel that housing is a reasonable use for the property. As stated, the office neighbors to the north of us, they felt it was a reasonable use. We did submit letters of support from these neighbors. They had no opposition to residents going in between their buildings. I think they actually would welcome the traffic. So with that, we would respectfully request that you approve the 3 applications, which are the change to the comprehensive plan, or the future land use plan, the change to the master development plan, and then obviously our zoning to facilitate this use. We have our design team with Epic Design. They've got their architect, they've got their engineers. We're happy to answer any technical questions you have, and we will reserve any time we have remaining.
Thank you. You make a very strong case, and you have a big ask. When we see applications that are requesting an amendment to the comprehensive land use plan and master plan and rezoning a property, it's as much as you can ask for, but you made a very, very strong case. And we tend not to just dismiss applications like this as if we haven't done our due diligence, but we also do consider significantly what staff is recommending based on the analysis. But I'd like to find out why the number of units you're proposing, how was that determined? Is that economic? Is that based on market analysis or based on need? What is the criteria for determining the number? And what is the price point?
Candidly, to make the economics work, you want to get as many units as you can. But at the same time, we're cognizant of the comprehensive plan. We're not asking for it to blow the density cap. This would allow up to 8 units to the acre if our proposal is approved. But we backed off the 8 units because, frankly, we've heard concerns with the maintenance requirements for an underground detention pond. So to make room for an above-ground detention pond and make certain, or at least try to get the city to feel comfortable that these residents do have the wherewithal to collect the funds from their homeowners association to pay, our clients took that additional unit out. So it's still coming in below what the comprehensive plan, if amended, would allow.
Do you have the area photo again? Can you put that up? I just want to see the adjacent land uses and the densities. Because this looks like it's going to be an island of townhomes right in the middle of single family. I'm assuming those are R15s. To my left, you're right.
You're correct, Mr. Chairman. There are no townhomes that adjoin this. There are residences in the city of Roswell that surround it. And we do have the R8A zoning. I don't know if you can see my cursor, you cannot. To the west, you can see where the large parking lot area is. So we would submit to you that it is a little bit different, but at the same time, there's a market demand for those units. From an aesthetic standpoint, nobody's going to see it. I mean, it's down below a hill, it's behind the office area. So we would submit to you, is it a little bit different than the housing type in the area? Yes, sir, we'll acknowledge that. Does it fit? Does it make the economics of improving the access drive and facilitating the detention pond work? Yes, sir, we would need the townhomes to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I've got a quick question, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify, here on the map, where we have the 2 office condos that front Upper Hembry, and the property that we're discussing tonight, did I hear you say that that property would not be a likely candidate for additional office condos?
Our position is if it had been, it would have been developed within the last 35 years.
The only thing I would offer as an alternative view on that is that the rate of development in Alpharetta really, in the last 7 to 10 years, is much, much quicker and faster and higher than the previous 25. So if anything, I think just when I look at this from a land use perspective, I think it's more what's going on in the last 7 to 10 years in Alpharetta, and could that potentially be, I mean, just to let you know, I was in Colony Park today where, you know, they have 3 or 4 buildings like this that front South Main Street, and then they have, I don't know, 7 to 10 that are off very similar to this layout. So I don't know, it's a tough sell for me to just assume that additional office condos could not go on that property, or would not be likely to go. Well, just being transparent.
No, I appreciate the dialogue, Mr. Shredden. I would tell you, my firm's actually been looking at Colony Park. But one of the things that we liked about it is it's walkable. This is not. There's not the restaurants in the downtown feel to walk to, and that's what we would say is different about this particular location.
Thank you.
Mr. Underwood, quick questions about the existing office buildings in front of the subject property.
Yes.
The conditions on the, particularly in the parking lots, I see reference to there being towards the back, proximate to where you're proposing to build these townhomes, the dumpsters. Also, I don't see any reference to what the exterior lighting for these office buildings would be for the parking lot and for security. And would this be something that's on all night, such that residents of these townhomes would now be looking at that?
If folks are buying these units, they're going to know they're driving through an office development in the front. So my understanding is the city does regulate the light spillage. I believe it's, I'm not exactly sure what the lumens are. I won't cite the code, but there are regulations as far as how much light is coming through. It can be illuminated from a lamp pole, but these folks who will be buying in there, they're buying that with knowledge because they have to drive exactly past that when it comes time to buy their homes.
So sort of a caveat emptor?
I'm sorry?
Sort of a caveat emptor?
It is, and something I left out earlier, there will be a sub-owners association. There is a set of covenants on this property that affect the office condominiums. So what would have to come in there would be a sub-owners association in which these folks are paying part of their share of the maintenance for lighting, electrical bills within the office portion, but then they would have other matters that they are solely responsible for, particularly their portion of the driveway, their detention pond.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just out of curiosity, so the 2 office condos, you said 1988 they were developed, but they were built as homes, right?
I am not aware of that. The site has been an office condominium, to my knowledge, since 1988. I believe the buildings were built in the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
But I'm not aware that they were operated as homes. You may have more knowledge about that than I do.
Well, I was just curious if you knew. And, okay, all right, thank you.
All right. If there are no further questions at this time, I'm going to open this for public comment.
Thank you.
And then you have time for rebuttal. I see others in the room. Anybody would like to speak in favor? In favor? All right. Seeing, please, yes. And please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Tom Abel. I own the office buildings in the front.
Can you give us
of
your
the-
address, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, 1105 Upper Humphrey Road. Like I said, I own 4 units out of the 6 units in both buildings. And we met the developer, of course, and we had some few discussions with them. We welcome that proposal for them. We really have no objection. As far as like the water issues that we're talking about, that it's going to be taken care of, and it's not going to affect anybody else, of course. And going back to the idea of the office space in that area, it might be a little bit tough going, since the subject property is like on the back of the building. So, like I said, I don't know, we don't have any objection, but if you have any question for me too, I can answer it. I own 4 units out of the 6. There's 3 units of
For
each
the
building.
office, the office.
Of the office building, yes, sir. Yes, it's 1105 Upper Humphrey and 1115 Upper Humphrey. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Anyone else in favor? Seeing none, anyone in opposition, please come forward. And please state your name and address for the
My
record.
name's Michael Griffin. I live at 1050 Taylor Oaks Drive. And if you look at that previous slide, you'll see that that south line of the back of those proposed townhouses, 90% of that, over 90% of that is my backyard. That line runs my whole backyard.
So you own one of the homes right adjacent to this property?
South.
South.
We're the south end of it.
Okay.
So we're in Roswell. The other side is Alpharetta.
Understood.
So our property line is the dividing line between Roswell and Alpharetta.
Okay.
And that's all downhill from those business things off of Upper Hembry. And we've been there over 20 years. The water that comes from that direction is incredible. I don't know how you're going to stop it. We've got rocks this big in our yard that try to flow all that into the retention pond that we owned half of. It's not a retention pond, it's the detention pond that we own half of. So if you're going to stop that water, good luck. And like I said, that line is, those proposed homes are going to be 15 feet from our backyard line. Not to say that we don't enjoy the company, but that's the reality of the situation. So I just wanted to bring that attention everybody, but I'm most concerned about the water. When you see that water flow, it's going. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Anyone else? Seeing none, any other comments? You have some rebuttal time if you'd like to add something.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate our neighbors' concerns. Just to clarify, the homes will be approximately 35 feet from that common boundary line. So that the homes, we have a 15-foot natural buffer, then at least 17 feet.
Can you use the aerial map?
Yes, sir.
I think you had an aerial map so the board can see.
If you're looking, thank you. There's a 15-foot natural buffer that is preserved. See my pen. Then you've got at least 17 feet. It actually tapers down in various portions of the property, but there'll be at least 35 feet of building separation between the boundary line And forgive me again, sir, remind me your name?
I don't know what you call it.
Mr. The Griffin's property, this is their boundary line. So the building separations, you're looking at least 35 feet before you can get to the property line, and then they would have their building setback as well. So there will be adequate building separation. We did also want to point out, if we're happy to provide additional detail, the depths, parking depths, to make sure that there's adequate room in the parking areas for cars to park. Hopefully they'll be pulling inside the garage, but we also want them to make sure they have adequate parking areas. So you have 20-foot parking areas in front of each of the townhomes. And then last but not least, Mr. Chairman, the stormwater, we understand the gentleman's concern. We hear this a lot from the development community, but if this gets through the zoning phase, this will go to the land disturbance portion of the development phase. At that point, before a shovel of dirt is turned, there has to be a hydrology report that is studied by a registered engineer, submitted to the city's engineers. They have to bless it and say, yes, those calculations are correct. And we would submit to you that if there is a stormwater runoff issue today that the Griffins are experiencing, this development and the capturing of this stormwater and the slower release of that will actually improve the current situation.
Thank you. All right. I am going to turn this over to the board for discussion and our comment. And I will start by saying that when we get an application that requires the three things I mentioned before, it's a great leap to consider and actually advance an application without what I consider a compelling reason. And compelling means you can't miss it. It's just so obvious, and that it's so clear that the staff and the community missed something when they came up with the comprehensive land use plan, the master plan, and the zoning for the property. One of the biggest concerns we always have, and this is nothing against the applicant, I'm just stating what we have to go through when we reason out an application like this, is what type precedent are we going to set when we do that? That's an important consideration for the board and for the city. And the reason I say that is because every time we have an application, applicants and even staff will go back and see where have we approved an amendment like this before. And that's part of, the case that's made. Or we did it here, we did it here, we did it there. So anything we do here and the council as a whole sets a precedent. The reason I was asking even why, how you came up with the number is because it just looks like it's an island in the middle of single-family development, and then these office units that, for me, I struggle to find how can I support it. I don't want to just dismiss it without thinking and going through it. I know staff does a lot of work in terms of preparing for the application to bring to the board. And when it comes to us, of course, we have to listen to what the public has to say. We have to apply knowledge of how the zoning code works, and then make a decision. So as we move forward, I try to look for the compelling reason, and how did we miss it that we didn't zone in that. I can't say that residential doesn't fit here. The question is what type residential, what type density, and when that actually happens. So without further ado, I'll let other commissioners weigh in on the application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was very wise words, and I appreciate your comments. I had a question for Michael. Help me understand the George Oswald master plan. Like, is it the whole area that we're talking about, and that if we do consider changing this, is it just to the 7 units, or if we permit the use and allow the change, are we allowing the entire property then to be? Do you follow what my line of questioning is?
Yeah, so that master plan, the George Oswald Jr. master plan, encompasses 2.9 acres, about 3 acres. The applicant's subject property as well as the office condo property to the north.
So it includes both?
So it includes both properties. Now, if the master plan amendment was, if this request was approved by the applicant, the use dwelling for sale attached, which is the townhome, that would be added to this master plan, and it would be specific to the site plan for this property. It wouldn't necessarily allow for townhomes to be developed on the property to the north. It is specific to this property.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just want to share a couple thoughts. My perspective is I definitely think the current zoning of office is more appropriate use than high-density residential. I just do, and I think not only with the data that the staff shared about extremely low office vacancy rates for the office condo product, combined with the fact that in Alpharetta, with the rate of development over the last 7 to 10 years, there's very few vacant lots left in Alpharetta that are developable. So I think when you take those two in combination with each other, I think it's very likely that someone would find that as an attractive location for additional office condos. And just to extend that, I just don't think this meets the criteria to make a comprehensive land use plan amendment or a master plan amendment at this time. So I cannot support this project.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, please.
Yes.
I'd like to move to deny CLUP-24-04/MP-24-07/Z-24-12 Epic Design and Build Upper Hembry Townhomes.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion passes. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is a recommending body. Council will have to consider it and they make the final decision should be presented on the 30th of the month. Anything else the board would like to discuss at this time? It's now 8:22.
I just want to remind you all that there's a public hearing procedures meeting on September 19th, led by the city attorney. I think most of you have responded, but if you haven't, we'd really appreciate it if you could be there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with nothing else to consider,